What should be normal is for a man to be in touch with his true self. So this will mean that he will have a good connection with his body, and through having this connection he will be able to be aware of his needs, his feelings, his wants, his desires, his preferences, and through having this connection he will be able to live a life that is a reflection, or mainly a reflection, of who he is. And this will allow him to experience joy, to feel alive, and to know that he is living in the right way. However, when a man is emotionally entangled with his mother, he can basically live on the surface of himself. So he can have a very poor connection with his body, and as a result of that, he can typically be out of touch with his feelings, most of his needs, his preferences, his desires, and his life is then not going to reflect who he is. So he will spend a lot of time being focused on his mother's needs and what she wants, and his life is then going to be more of a reflection of her than it is of him. And he might not even know that his mother's needs are not his own. And this is because this will be what is comfortable. This could be how he has lived for most of his life. So although certain people may be able to see what is going on, for him it could be a mystery. And if he was to live in a certain society, he could often come into contact with people that say he is living in the right way. And this could be a society where children are basically seen as their parents' possessions, as an extension of their parents. And so their parents will basically use their children to meet their needs, and then the same thing will take place in the next generation. And so instead of a parent being there for their child, they will basically suck the life out of their children, and then, as I said, the same thing will go on and on and on. And one generation is developmentally stunted, and then it goes on to the next. And so the reason why a man like this would have no connection to his true self and be out of touch with his body is because this is how he was brought up. So instead of receiving the nutrients and the attunement that he needed very early on to stay connected to his body, his feelings, his needs, he would have had to have lost touch with himself and to be super focused on his mother, and instead of being connected to his true self, he would have had to have created a false self, and this would have been something that took place automatically. So he wouldn't have thought, if I do this and do that, I'll survive. It would have just happened. And a big part of this false self will be to focus on his mother's needs and to do what he can to please her, for her to be the centre of his world. And so now that he's an adult, it will be a repetition of the past. So he will have lost touch with himself very early on, and many years will have passed, and now he will still be out of touch with himself. And back then, if he expressed his needs or his feelings, he may have been punished or abandoned. And now that he's an adult, he can feel, or he can fear deep down, that if he was to express his needs, he will be doing something wrong. So he can, even if he was to just think about doing this, he can feel guilty and very uncomfortable, because through being in an undeveloped state, obviously his physical body will have grown and perhaps his intellect will have grown as well, but emotionally he will be in this symbiotic state. So even if he was to just think about expressing himself, let alone expressing himself, all this fear will come up, fear that he's bad, fear that he will be abandoned, and so he will do what he can to stay focused on his mother's needs and to ignore himself, and this is obviously going to cause him to suffer and to run on empty, so he can create the impression that everything is okay, but deep down he can feel very depressed, and when he's by himself he can feel very low. But he will have this compulsion to please his mother because his survival will still be attached to her, because he won't have been able to experience the emotional birth to create a strong core, a strong sense of self. And also during this time, perhaps his father wasn't around, or if he was, he wouldn't have been emotionally available, because his father would have played a role in pulling him out of his mother's world, and so that he can start the individuation process. But this wouldn't have happened, so he will be physically separate but emotionally entangled. And so, as I said in the beginning, in order for him to live a great life, to feel alive, experience joy, he will need to get back in touch with himself and to express who he is. And so if you're a man and you can relate to this, please know that you are not bad, your needs are not bad. And in order for you to transform yourself, slowly transform yourself, because this is not going to take place overnight, you may need to reach out for external support. And this could be from a therapist or a healer, but the main thing is that you reach out and don't suffer in silence, because you deserve to live a great life.